Ooh.
We're joking.
We certainly don't do things like that here.
Welcome to Envision Prototypes. I'm Nick, and this is my dad, Vic. And today we're going to bring you an episode on repairing rocker panels on 93 Dodge pickup. But you can apply this process to about any vehicle that you might have. So as you saw, we have some pretty crunchy rockers down here. There's not much left of them. Both sides is just about the same. Water got in from one way or another, and the drainage holes got plugged and caused this issue. Now these rockers extend in behind the front fenders. And to correctly fix this, we have to take that front end apart. Yeah, a lot of times you hear about guys kicking and filling, take a hammer, drive it down, put some chicken wire on there, spray foam it, put the Bond over top, paint it, and it looks good for about a week. But then it just comes right back out. Stuffing paper is just not the right way to fix something. And when you go to cut this out, that stuff's gonna catch fire. So we're gonna make sure it's out. In order to properly fix these rockers, these front fenders need to come off. For these front fenders to come off, that hood has to come off because the hinges are actually bolted to the fender and not to the inner wheel well. Sometimes you can get lucky and leave the hinges and hood where they are. In this case, those inner fenders stay behind. You don't need to remove them, but the fenders and the hood all have to come off. You could replace this section here, but the cancer is still in behind the heel of the fender. And there is some rot going on in the heel of the fender. We'll address that later on. Our main concern for today's video is the rocker. Now you can buy these rockers online from wherever. There's multiple sources available on the interweb, but they only cover regular cab pickups. And we need to come back all the way back into here. And for us to do that, well, you can piece two rockers together, but for us to do that properly, we're gonna take and bend up a whole new set of rockers for both sides and extend from this point all the way into the front and make it a one-piece section. Therefore, you have a lot less trouble. To get started, we're going to take and pull a template off the profile of this rocker to get the right shape. Then we'll take and cut all this out, clean it up, prep it all, and we'll go ahead, bend up the new rocker and get them installed. We'll prime the insides, prime the outsides, and go through and paint it all. If you choose to do this repair yourself, a lot of times you can take and pull a template off the profile of your rocker, take it to a sheet metal shop, or you can take a section of the rocker and ask them to bend up a full-length rocker. It's a pretty simple shape. They can do it on their break and get that done for you. The fun part starts now, pulling that front end apart. Okay, so first things first, let's see where things are to begin disassembly. Get this door open. So this sill plate has to come off to expose the rocker, obviously. So we're gonna pull back on this rubber seal, just lay it back inside. There's two fasteners, one there, one there. Peel that off. There might be adhesive under here to prevent any water from getting in the rocker. We'll see. I can't remember what we did, so that might have to be addressed. In other words, you just pull the cover off. It doesn't look too bad into this back corner here, but we'll see more when the sill plate comes off. Now, in regards to the front fenders, I believe there's a fastener. I can't even get the camera in. Right there. There's one fastener here. You undo that for the front fender. There's a bolt underneath here. There's a series of bolts around the wheel arch. Yeah, we'll have to fix that later. Today's all about the rockers. So you undo a series of bolts around the wheel well. And then there's one down in here. These headlight buckets, two screws here. This comes out. Both sides, take the signal lights out, two screws there. And that'll expose fasteners inside. You undo all the fasteners along the top edge of the hood and the fasteners inside, and that grille comes off. And as for the front bumper, you can take that off if you want. There's a series of bolts. Let's see if we can get the camera to focus. It's pretty dark in here, but there's two here and there's three here. So you undo those and drop the front bumper. Now, for those of you who've never pulled a hood off a vehicle by yourself, you can take and lay some towels in behind to support the corners of the hood. Slacken off these 1/2-inch bolts that hold the hinges to the hood, both sides. Make sure they're loose and you're not fighting them. See, loosen these off. And then one side at a time, you take them out and let the hood rest on this towel or this blanket, whatever you're using in this to support the hood. If you have two people, it's a lot easier because then they can support the front of the hood while you're undoing the fasteners at the back. And very carefully remove the hood. See, once you pull off this side, do the first side, second side, the hood will slide down. It'll pivot on the top edge here. The front will come down and you guys can pick it up and lift it off the truck. Do the front one first. This way, the back is still holding the hood from flopping down. Dad's stripping out the grill. There's some fasteners in behind. We forget what the original grill was like in terms of fasteners. More than likely they use Phillips head screws. So in order to pull out this cowl vent, you need to take out the series of screws across the front. There's a screw in the corner on each side. I didn't realize there was a slotted opening here, so I took the screw right out. But you can leave that screw in place and just pull this whole cowl vent forward. Disconnect the squirter lines from up underneath. And then you can take and pull this panel out to access that last bolt for the front fender. Once that's off and the ones on the bottom are out and around the wheel well, this fender should hopefully, fingers crossed, lift off. Now most of the bolts on the fender have a 1/2 inch socket. The ones around the wheel well have a 7/16 socket. And then we're pulling the grill off right now. And this is a custom grill. We use some stainless fasteners, but yours will more than likely be Phillips head screw. Like that, right there. Now one thing very important I'm going to mention to you guys. After you take out these bolts in here, they have some spacers underneath the fender flange to space it up so everything is properly aligned. Make sure you don't lose these spacers and make sure you put them back exactly where they came from. Otherwise, well, your panels won't line up properly. You can see the spacer from this side underneath the front bolt there. So I've stripped off all the accessories that are bolted to the fender. They're a 3/8 socket for the most part on this truck, so those all came off. And if you look here, you squint just right, there's a bolt here from the underside, 7/16 socket, as well as, where'd it go? Just underneath this harness, right under there if you can see it. There's one there. And there's one more brace after you unplug the horns. There's 2 horns to tuck up under here. There's one more brace in addition to this one here that has to be unbolted, and you can unbolt it from the wheel well right here. Now let's go check out the passenger side and see what's over there. Now you've got this big, on the Cummins end truck, you've got this big filter here. There might be something under it. We're gonna wiggle the fender and see if there's anything. But there's the same 2 bolts there and there that hold the fender to the wheel splash guard from the underside. If you take those out, you'll loosen up the fender. We have motion, so let's see what happens. We might end up taking this canister out yet.
Put the rag on that nut so that we don't blister the chrome. Set of channel locks. The edges of the teeth would score the chrome and then it will blister.
Here, we're just about ready to pull the front fender off. You can see the spacer here. These are the 2 we gotta be careful. They came out from under here, so you have to make sure you don't lose them anywhere. The ones in the back won't go anywhere because you have a stud there. And at the front here, we're running into a bit of a dilemma. We've got a flange here, and we have to get past that flange, but we're up against this molding on the bumper. If you have a regular bumper, you might have enough clearance to do that, but we don't want to scratch the paint. So we're going to end up taking and removing this bumper. Okay, well that wasn't too bad. 5 bolts over here. See these holes? 2 up there, 1 there, 2 there, 5 over there. You would need a 5/8 socket and a 11/16 box end to get those out. And now we have the room to actually take and slide the fender outward, disengaging it from the front firewall there, and then pulling it ahead so that we don't chip the paint on the door, because you can see how tight that's getting over there. Okay guys, so with the front fenders off the truck, now we can get a better look and see what we have to deal with down here. Now, we caught that just in time. It's not too bad yet. Take that scaly rust off, clean it up, treat the metal, and paint it. But today, we're going to be working on these rockers. And as you can see, these roll right up inside the fender. If we made our joint in this location, we'd always have a problem there. So by stripping them right off, forming up new ones, getting them installed, we're going to be way ahead of the game. Let's go look at the other side. Overall, she's pretty clean for her age. A little bit of rust in there. Like I said, we'll get that all cleaned up. Cab corners are good. And even this rocker doesn't look bad on this side. But we're not going to mess around. That's all coming out. It's bubbling up. So we'll form up new pieces, get them installed. Notice that this stud actually stayed behind. The other side came out. This one stayed behind, holding our shims in place. You can see there's 3 there, actually 4 there, and 2 there. And on the other side, there were again 2 at the front and 4 at the back. Now this might vary depending on your truck or how it was assembled at the factory. So you can't really rely on this information as to being what you have on your truck. Just wanted to clarify how this was fastened in here. Now there's a structural brace that bolted to this web of the cab, and then the fender itself had 2 more bolts that bolted the fender to the brace. So it depends how far you want to go in as to what you take out. You can take out this main bolt here and remove the bracket and all, or you can remove the 2 bolts as we did earlier off the fender and address that. Now I took all 3 out, so we're gonna have to take and clean all that stuff up later and reassemble it. As you can see, the underside looks really good. Cab corners are solid. This is the only spot that's pretty questionable. Now there's some bubbling going on here. But what I'm gonna do, we're gonna take and go into this slowly, just ease into it. And I'm gonna take and slice just below this factory feature. Yes, it is gone there, but we're gonna slice it through here. First stage of cutting it open, up to this seam. Come down, slice this out. These have to be drilled out, and then we can pull off the rocker. Once I remove this main outer shell or skin, then I'll go ahead and clean up this flange here. Let's get cutting. We're gonna use a zip blade rather than a plasma, because there could be a mouse nest or who knows, leaves that you don't want to catch fire. So we'll just start opening this up with the zip blade, cut this top surface off. We've made the profile template for this, and we'll just get this done. I'm not going to go too far back into that area just yet. I want to look from the end and see what we're dealing with. And then at that point, that's where we haven't made the rockers yet. Then at that point, I'll find out how far back the good material goes by grinding this back, and we'll blend it in at that stage. And we won't have a step like this. It'll be butt welded and finished off. Well, that wasn't too bad. Just took a look at all this stuff here, and we're not gonna have to take and remove this top section of rocker. There's a little bit of rust here, just kind of crept up, so we'll address that. But the rest of this sill is in mint condition. There's no rust, it's clean. Our problem resulted from these lubrication holes, whatever you want to call them. Probably had rubber grommets like this one at one time from the backside, and the grommets fell out, the dirt got in, ran to the front, and took out the rockers in the front. So a lot of times, like I said, if the moisture can't get out, it's going to cause a problem. Cab corners are good. We'll get that cleaned up. And as for back here, we do have some holes coming through this rear section of rocker. So we're going to cut back on that, remove that, again, cutting back just below this body line here, where I put the tape, and just replace this bottom section. I'll peel off this flange. Most of that fell off already. We'll clean all that up, prime all that. So we're going to put our joint along this feature here. That way we'll maintain our bottom door gap. That won't change. This will all be prepared, cleaned up, and we don't have to open things up all the way inside. I'm going to take a look at the area right up and through here where it mates up with the pillar. I'm going to peel that off and address that. This is not a show truck, it's a work truck. And while we don't cut corners, this will be done right. We don't have to go crazy on this. There's some more holes there. That was probably a web on the inside. Although I don't see anything on this thing. See, that's pretty crunchy. Strange why they would have some holes there. Just trying to get a better look. So what we'll do is we're going to weld all those things up, just seal that up. So no more water gets inside here and takes out the new rockers. So I'm gonna get cutting, remove this section through here further back, and then I'll bring you guys in once all this has been cleaned up and primered. Then we can go ahead and bend up the new rockers and start fitting them in. So I started cleaning up this area here, and then I stopped, because as you can see, there's not much left. This bottom 2 inches is like cheese. There's holes right through, all the way along, right through there. It's I can shine a light behind there, but really it doesn't matter because that's all coming out. That's stripped through there. We're gonna eliminate a lot of those undercoating holes, get rid of that. And this is what they used to plug those holes. And you can see they've just aged, broken apart, and allowed water to get in. So that's garbage. I've taken and formed up a new piece for the bottom. I'm gonna overlap about 1/4 inch after we cut off this, and I'll put our welds along the top there, as well as from the back side. We're not cutting corners, but you can go too far. You can start pulling this out, going up into there, pulling the rug out. You can snowball very quickly. And that's the other reason why we're leaving this, because this top sill plate, there's nothing wrong with it. It's really good, it's in really good shape. And when my dad bends up the outer rocker, you'll see how we'll integrate the outer rocker into this for a nice strong joint.
Okay. Flush with the edge of the door, right?
Kind of, yeah.
There. Should be flush with the rocker. That right there, yeah. Okay, if you can hold that whole rocker in place. Got it?
Yeah.
And there we have our rocker panel that we fabricated from flat sheet of sheet metal, and tongue-tied there. Anyway, this is going to be butt welded back here. We have to go through, punch a series of holes for spot welds there, and then we're going to go through and weld up the seam here. Now, the thing is, it's a little bit out here. I just kind of clamped it kind of with one hand. It has to be set properly so that the front is flush with the front of the rocker. That's why I left that as a reference over here. And like I said, that'll be butt welded. We have to set the gap between the bottom of the door and this plate because it's kind of deflected up when I pushed it upward. So we're getting close. But before we go any further, I'll punch a series of holes, wipe this off, prime the inside of this, get all that ready, and then we'll clamp it in place. And we'll go through and start tacking this and getting it in for the final time. Exciting. There seems to be a bit of a burr back here, so I have to make sure, yeah, right there, I can feel it with my fingernail. You gotta make sure that that is nice and flush on the inside. So that little step that we created, that's where we're gonna bury the weld. And once it's all welded up, ground smooth, you'll never tell it was there. Well, you might just a little bit. That's what a little bit of filler is for. We'll skim coat that very slightly, and then we're gonna put some high build, block it out a little bit, smooth it out, and get it ready for paint. Okay, so we're getting a lot closer now. That inner bottom edge has been replaced, a new piece welded in, primered, seam sealed, and as you can see here, I've got some tape on here just to keep the weld-through primer exposed. There we go. So you don't want to build up too much thickness with seam sealer and then try welding through that. It doesn't work out too well. Okay, so after some finagling, that came out really, really smooth, really even. It blends in from this rear rocker section all the way into the front. We have the same curvature coming through. It blended in to the cab corner really well. And in terms of this little reveal or this little step that we created to have the overlap feature to retain the top door sill, that came out fantastic. You have to really draw the line where you want to take your project. We could have stripped out the rug back, taken the seats out, and taken the rockers and replaced them all the way into the internal pinch weld where it meets the floor. This is just as strong. That inner sill, there's nothing wrong with it. And since we're fabricating our own rockers, this worked out really well. So I'm gonna mix up some body filler and just fill in this little reveal here. There's maybe a 1/16, maybe less of an inch. Most places it's even, but there are a couple little things. So we're gonna smooth that out, block it out, prime it, and paint it. And what we're gonna do is bring the paint line up to here because the door had some things going on in the corner. We'll clean that up. Let's mix up some filler. I'll show you how we go about doing that and move on to the other side. So first thing I really wanna do when applying filler is kind of create a barrier between the good and what we're working on. I don't want to get filler on there and end up cleaning it up. This masking tape will just kind of protect everything. Just a couple, just go up to here like so. There we go. So if I happen to kind of get a little crooked and I get some filler on there, it's not a problem. Just take the tape off, that's clean. And we're only dealing with about 1 inch, 3/4 of an inch wide here at the most. The rest of the rocker, it's fine. It's smooth, everything came out perfect. Okay, so with respect to body filler, mix up just what you need. And easy to say that, I guess, but just through experience, you know how far this much will go. And there's probably more than enough to get that whole seam smoothed out. I'm gonna try and do it in one coat because it's not very thick. Sometimes you have to apply several to kind of even out any low areas. And when it comes to applying hardener, you can go through, measure how much filler you have on the board, measure and calculate and measure out how much hardener you require. But given it's not a very hot day today, we don't need too much. So just kind of make a single line like that. There we go. If you don't put enough, it won't cure and it'll be gummy. And if you put too much in, you'll have almost 0 working time before it sets. And just fold it in nice. Make sure that you incorporate all the hardener in correctly so you don't have any non-homogeneous or non-consistent, non-same color areas. It has to be the same color. There we go. That looks pretty good. All right, so we want to make sure that just apply a little bit. I'll get that straightened out, don't worry. Now, there's probably another 200 ways of applying body filler. Everybody has their own way, their own system. A lot of people have negative views when it comes to body filler, but when it comes to even high-end hot rods, you will find a certain degree of filler in those cars. Back in the old days, they used to use lead. Oops, a little bit too high there, see? And it really took a talent to sling lead. All right, kind of curve your spreader in the form of your panel. See, I'm taking most of what I put on off. And yeah, I did go down a little bit lower. It just happened to come down. See, I'm holding my tongue just right and it worked out over here quite nicely. I'll put a little bit back here. Probably don't need it, and sand most of it off. Take off the excess amount because then you're going to be left sanding it off. And that's pretty much it. Like, it's hardly anything there. And you see how it's kind of grabbing now? It's kind of bunching up. That's it. Stop. because otherwise you're just going to get worse from there and you won't be able to spread it out and then you're stuck. So that's it. I'm going to take and block that out, hit it with a coat of primer, call it a day. We're done. Leave that tape on there for now so that when I'm sanding this, if I accidentally hit this upper panel, I just touch the tape, not the paint. Although we do have to touch up the corners. So. And we're left with a nice clean board, and most of that, well, that'll be thrown out. Just cutting off the excess. Once it starts getting hard, you can kind of get rid of what you don't need on here. Get rid of that thing. Some people are very, very good at spreading filler. They can carve entire cars out of filler. It's amazing what they can do. I'm not that great. I'd sooner take the time, work it out with metal, but sometimes you need a little bit to clean things up. And as they say in the Saturday morning cartoons, that's all, folks. Now, normally I'd have my mask on, but since I'm going to be talking, you won't understand too much of what I'm saying if I have a mask on. So anyway, this side's just about done. I've got, well, you can see the metal right there. It's showing through. So it's very, very minuscule amount of filler to take care of this. And you can see that metal edge. So you're not going to be breaking off chunks of Bondo with your size 12s or whatever when you get in and out. So just a minuscule amount in there, smoothed out any little imperfections. And it's a little bit high there, but I think we can live with that. I'll bring you guys in once we're all done to show you how it turned out. Truck is back in the shop from paint, rockers, fender heels, front fender lip, and even the box corner, all repaired, cleaned up, and painted. And now we can finalize the assembly, get the hood on, grill on, bumper on, roll this outside, wash it, and call it done, get it back to work. Now you might be saying in the comments, you didn't show us how to install the front fenders. If you're interested to see a comprehensive video on installing front sheet metal, like everything, click that card up above. It'll take you to his 1970 Camaro video that we did earlier, and it'll show you everything that's involved in getting all the body lines, and in this case, the graphics, to line up perfectly. The process is the same for just about any vehicle. The fastener locations might be different, but the process is always the same. So if you're interested, hit that card and it'll take you there. Now this is what we call a smart repair, in the sense that we repaired what we needed to. The top sill plate on both sides was perfect, so that didn't have to get changed. By repairing it in that location, we did a full length weld, seam sealed, undercoated it, drilled holes in the bottom of the rocker for any water to escape, and that will last for years and years and years. If somebody had asked us to, we would have gone all the way in to the floor where the floor pinch weld meets the inner rocker and replaced the entire rocker. But it wasn't necessary in this case. And for the amount of time that we wanted to spend on this repair, this is perfect. You might see something that's kind of sticking out. That's that front door corner. For whatever reason on this truck, we've fixed that numerous times, pushed it in, aligned it with the fender, with the rocker. But this truck sits outside in the wintertime, and the water that gets down here freezes in this area. For whatever reason, it doesn't want to run out. And when you open the door, it just pushes it out that much. It doesn't push out any more or any less. It seems to be happy in that spot, so we left it. If you like what you saw, give us a thumbs up. If you didn't like what you saw, let us know in the comments. Until next time, guys, thanks so much for watching. Take care. All right, so we got a number of questions about this grill here and how that came about. Well, when we first got the truck, it went in for a water pump replacement and came out mysteriously with a cracked grill. And of course, it is what it is. Nothing could be done. So didn't fight it, left it alone. And we tried to find another one, but they are ridiculously expensive. So we left it, drove it. Eventually the crack spread through here, took out that center bar. The bottom one, I think, was still there. But before it got much worse, we created a mold of the grill, of the original one, cast this one, did some body work on it, cleaned it up, painted it with kind of a brushed stainless look. I don't know if you guys can see the brushed effect through here. Got that on the truck, and then for the center, we created some horizontal bars using some 3/8 tubing. Got tired of that look after a while, so went ahead and created a woven mesh insert. Blacked it out, put it in. That's the story on the grill.